A swarm of small earthquakes striking southeast Missouri over the last 24 hours, the strongest of which was measured a 3.0 magnitude, which occurred around 12:30 this morning.
Deep in the heartland of the United States, a troubling sign has emerged beneath the soil, a series of cracks forming beneath the new Madrid Fault Zone, a region already notorious among geologists and seismologists for its seismic volatility. The discovery of these subterranean fissures has triggered an immediate and urgent response from the scientific community. As specialists monitor the situation with heightened alertness, the rest of the country is left to grapple with the implications of what could potentially unfold along one of the most dangerous fault lines in North America. Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more updates. The new Madrid Fault Zone stretches beneath the central United States, cutting through parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Illinois. Historically, this fault system has been responsible for some of the most powerful earthquakes in the continental U.S., most notably the catastrophic series that struck in the winter of 1811-1812. These quakes were so strong they reportedly caused the Mississippi River to momentarily flow backward and were felt as far away as the East Coast. Since then, the region has remained under close surveillance, and any anomalies in the crustal behavior beneath this zone are taken extremely seriously. The recent discovery of deep, irregular cracking under the new Madrid Fault Zone has significantly elevated concerns. These aren't surface-level fissures caused by seasonal shifts or soil settlement. Instead, they are deep crustal fractures, some extending for miles underground. Geologists identified them using a combination of satellite-based interferometric radar, INSAR, GPS tracking, and ground-based seismic imaging. The anomalies appeared gradually at first, but over several weeks, the data revealed accelerated movement in the bedrock, prompting scientists to raise the alarm. What makes these cracks especially alarming is their location in proximity to known pressure points within the fault system. The new Madrid Fault Zone is a reactivated ancient rift, a weakened scar in the Earth's crust that dates back hundreds of millions of years. Over time, stresses have accumulated along this zone due to the motion of the North American plate. Unlike faults in more active tectonic regions like California's San Andreas, the new Madrid Fault operates in what is considered an intraplate zone. Seismic events occur not because of boundary friction between two plates, but due to accumulated stress within a single tectonic plate. This makes the fault's behavior more unpredictable and in some cases more devastating due to the rigidity of the surrounding rock. The development of cracks in this context is highly unusual. In tectonically active zones, cracking is often part of the natural seismic cycle, a release of built-up energy in small amounts to prevent a larger, catastrophic rupture. In contrast, the new Madrid Fault Zone does not release energy regularly. Its seismic activity is sporadic and often quiet, making any signs of crustal fracturing significant. The recent cracks suggest a shift in stress that is not typical for the area, possibly indicating that the fault is moving toward a critical stress threshold. If true, this would imply that the system is priming itself for a large-scale seismic event. Further complicating the issue is the structural makeup of the region's geology. Beneath the surface lies a network of soft sediments, remnants of ancient river systems and glacial activity. These sediments are known to amplify seismic waves, meaning that any earthquake that does occur in the new Madrid region is likely to have far-reaching and devastating effects. Cities hundreds of miles away could feel intense shaking, and structures not built to withstand such movement could suffer extensive damage. The Midwestern United States, unlike California, has not implemented widespread seismic-resistant building codes. This lack of preparation heightens the risk for urban centers like St. Louis, Memphis, and even Nashville. The implications of these newly discovered cracks are vast and unsettling. One immediate concern is the potential for an earthquake swarm, a series of small to moderate earthquakes that can either release seismic pressure or, conversely, act as precursors to a larger quake. While earthquake swarms are not uncommon in fault zones, the new Madrid region has seen an uptick in minor seismic events over the past decade. The new cracking suggests that these smaller quakes might be symptoms of a deeper problem, rather than isolated incidents. Another critical issue lies in the behavior of groundwater in the area. The new Madrid Fault Zone intersects several major aquifers and water tables. Cracks forming deep underground could disrupt these natural water systems. potentially leading to contamination or shifts in flow patterns. For agricultural regions that rely heavily on consistent groundwater supplies, any disruption could result in long-term consequences for crop production and water security. Geologists are already monitoring changes in groundwater levels and flow rates across several monitoring stations in the region to determine if the cracking is influencing subsurface water movement. Seismic modeling based on the new data presents another layer of concern. When geologists input the newly mapped cracks into existing seismic risk models, the results suggested a statistically significant increase in the likelihood of a major earthquake occurring in the next 10 to 50 years. While such probabilities have always existed for the new Madrid zone, this new data intensifies the timeline. A fault that many had considered dormant or marginally active now appears to be slowly waking. Beyond the scientific implications, there are serious logistical and infrastructural issues to consider. The region crisscrosses several major transportation routes, including highways, railroads, and river shipping lanes. A powerful earthquake here could cripple supply chains across the Midwest and South, triggering economic consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate disaster zone. Gas pipelines, power transmission lines, and fiber optic networks also run through this area. Cracks in the earth beneath these installations pose not only the risk of physical destruction, but could lead to cascading failures in energy and communication systems. In light of the potential dangers, emergency preparedness agencies across several states have already begun reassessing their disaster response plans. The unique challenge posed by the new Madrid Fault Zone is that many of the affected areas are not densely urbanized but still hold significant populations spread across rural and semi-rural communities. This makes coordinated evacuation and emergency response more complicated. The new geological findings are pushing some states to reconsider the scale of their drills and public education campaigns surrounding seismic risks. A less discussed but vital aspect of this development is its psychological impact. For many residents in the region, the idea of an earthquake has always seemed like a distant possibility, something that might occur in the lifetime of a distant descendant, not in the immediate future. Now, with cracks opening below the surface and scientists issuing urgent warnings, the abstract threat has become a looming presence. Public anxiety is rising, with more people turning to news outlets and scientific reports for guidance and understanding. Managing this fear while promoting realistic preparedness is a delicate balance that local authorities and scientists must navigate carefully. The growing understanding of the subsurface conditions beneath the new Madrid Fault Zone underscores how little is still known about intraplate seismicity. Unlike boundary faults, which are studied extensively due to their frequent activity, intraplate zones remain enigmatic. The current situation offers a rare opportunity for scientists to collect real-time data on fault behavior and possibly develop new predictive models. Every crack, every shift, every tremor recorded now is a crucial puzzle piece in the larger picture of how the Earth's crust behaves away from plate boundaries. The cracks under the new Madrid Fault Zone are more than geological features. They are signs, warnings, and perhaps even precursors to something greater. They speak of the immense forces at play beneath the surface, the slow grinding and bending of stone that, over decades or centuries, build toward moments of sudden violence. Understanding them is not just a matter of scientific curiosity, but a necessity for public safety and infrastructure resilience. In the meantime, the nation watches. While geologists race to gather data and analyze every tremor, crack, and shift, residents of the Mississippi Valley region go about their lives under the quiet weight of geological uncertainty. Trains continue to pass over steel bridges, farmers till their soil, and children attend schools built on land that may one day ripple and crack. The earth moves slowly, silently, and then sometimes all at once. Every indication from current monitoring suggests that the new Madrid Fault Zone is becoming increasingly unstable. Deep crustal fractures forming now may represent the initial stage of stress redistribution within the zone, similar to what occurred before the massive earthquakes of the early 19th century. Back then, there was no warning, no technology to catch the early signs. Now, humanity has the tools, but whether it has the time is another question entirely. In a landscape that has not seen a major seismic event in centuries, complacency is a formidable danger. Roads and bridges built in times of peace and geological quietude may not survive the test of a major rupture. Entire towns, with their brick facades and unreinforced structures, are exposed to an invisible threat rising from below. The recently discovered cracks are a stark reminder that the Earth remembers its old wounds and is capable of reopening them without warning. If the stress beneath the new Madrid Fault Zone continues to build, the consequences could be felt from the Great Plains to the Appalachian Mountains. In a worst-case scenario, a major earthquake originating here could lead to cascading effects across state lines, disrupting everything from electricity grids to interstate commerce. The interconnectedness of modern infrastructure means that the shaking of a single fault line could reverberate not just through the ground but through the economy, governance, and daily life. This new chapter in the story of the new Madrid Fault Zone is unfolding in real time. Each new crack, each fresh piece of data, brings us closer to understanding what the Earth may be preparing to do. Whether it culminates in a silent decay of pressure or a sudden catastrophic release is a question no one can yet answer with certainty. But the message beneath the soil is becoming clearer with each passing day. Something is stirring. And when the Earth speaks, even in the quiet language of cracking rock, it is wise to listen. The growing concern surrounding the cracks beneath the new Madrid Fault Zone has galvanized a broad spectrum of scientific disciplines. While geologists and seismologists lead the charge in analyzing the data, geophysicists, hydrologists, and structural engineers have also converged on the scene to interpret the deeper consequences of this geotectonic shift. The complex interplay of forces acting below the surface is not limited to a singular geological narrative. It stretches into hydrodynamics, stress field analysis, material deformation, and long-term continental drift. This convergence of academic and practical expertise is perhaps the most concentrated multidisciplinary effort the region has seen since the last major spike in seismic concern decades ago. A particularly notable development stems from new modeling efforts using three-dimensional crustal simulation. These simulations take into account decades of seismic readings, historical data, and more recently, real-time input from satellite interferometry. The results paint a striking picture. Not only are the cracks indicative of a buildup in tectonic strain, but the orientation and depth of these fractures suggest a renewed activation of fault segments that were previously believed to be dormant or sealed. One of the most worrying findings is that certain stress corridors, zones where strain energy is funneled and amplified, appear to be realigning, creating new vectors of vulnerability across the fault's breadth. Engineers and geotechnical experts are now examining the broader implications of these subsurface movements on soil liquefaction potential. In previous quakes, such as those recorded in the 19th century, the liquefaction of the ground was among the most devastating secondary effects. Entire sections of land lost their structural integrity, homes collapsed, and trees were uprooted and swallowed. Liquefaction occurs when intense shaking increases water pressure in saturated soils, causing them to temporarily behave like a liquid. With fresh cracks forming deep underground, particularly in areas with high water tables, the likelihood of liquefaction is once again on the table. This would be especially catastrophic in riverine towns and floodplains, where soil stability is already precarious. A further dimension of concern arises from the presence of critical infrastructure in and around the fault zone. One particularly vulnerable feature is the vast network of natural gas and oil pipelines that traverse the Midwest. These pipelines run along corridors that were designated decades ago, under the assumption of geological stability. However, the emergence of these new cracks, especially those aligned perpendicularly to major pipe routes, introduces the possibility of stress-induced ruptures. A breach in any of these systems could lead to explosions, widespread fires, or major fuel shortages in the event of a quake. Already, energy companies are dispatching engineers to perform structural assessments of their underground lines and are reviewing shutdown protocols in case of an emergency scenario. Railroads, too, present another weak link. Freight lines running through states like Arkansas and Missouri are critical to the movement of goods across the country. These rails are laid across embankments, trestles, and bridges that were never designed with high-magnitude seismic events in mind. Cracks under the earth can compromise the bedding and supports of these systems long before any surface shaking is even detected. Derailments, loss of cargo, and even hazardous material spills become probable risks in a compromised environment. Authorities are increasingly turning to ground-penetrating radar, GPR, and LiDAR mapping to assess the stability of these transportation routes in light of the new findings. Meanwhile, climatologists have added their voices to the discourse, not to suggest that weather is causing the cracking, far from it, but to highlight how recent climatic conditions may have accelerated underlying vulnerabilities. Prolonged drought followed by intense flooding, both of which have afflicted parts of the Midwest in recent years, have weakened the topsoil and increased the rate of erosion. This cycle of drying and saturation places additional stress on the subsurface structures, which, when combined with tectonic pressure, makes cracking more likely. The alteration of surface load distributions from large-scale water migration, whether from swollen rivers or receding aquifers, adds further complexity to the fault's behavioral matrix. Urban planners and civil authorities, long removed from the seismic anxieties that plague cities along the West Coast, are finding themselves thrust into uncomfortable territory. Many Midwestern municipalities were built in eras that never accounted for seismic resilience. Brick buildings, non-reinforced masonry, and antiquated utility systems are common across the region. The emergence of these cracks now acts as a stark warning that retrofitting should no longer be optional. The cost of seismic proofing older infrastructure is high, but the cost of not doing so could be far greater in the event of a rupture. In academic circles, the situation has prompted a renewed debate about the nature of intraplate earthquakes themselves. The common understanding of plate tectonics focuses on the boundaries where plates collide, slide past each other, or diverge. But what is now becoming clearer is that the interiors of plates are not immune to large-scale motion. Ancient rifts, like the Reelfoot Rift beneath the New Madrid Zone, act like old wounds that can be reopened under the right conditions. The cracks that have recently formed may be expressions of this deeper, slower process. Tectonic reawakening on a timescale that stretches beyond human experience but is now brushing against modern civilization. Additionally, archaeologists and paleoseismologists have turned their attention to the region's soil layers and sedimentary records. Evidence of ancient quakes, preserved in sandblows, disrupted strata, and liquefied zones, suggests that powerful seismic events in the area occur with irregular but terrifying consistency. If past cycles are any indicator, the presence of new cracks could signify that the clock is winding toward another major seismic release. These discoveries add weight to the calls for increased funding into early warning systems and deeper fault analysis, especially in regions historically considered low priority. The insurance industry, often the canary in the coal mine when it comes to emerging threats, has also begun reacting. Several major providers are reassessing policies for areas overlying or adjacent to the New Madrid Fault Zone. Premiums for earthquake coverage are expected to rise sharply, and some firms may even begin limiting their exposure in higher-risk counties. This development introduces a troubling financial dimension for homeowners and businesses alike. In many cases, existing policies do not cover seismic damage at all, unless additional coverage is purchased. With the cracks now representing a tangible geological threat, the affordability and accessibility of earthquake insurance could become a regional crisis in its own right. Another overlooked consequence of this development lies in the psychological burden on the population. Earthquakes are uniquely traumatic natural disasters due to their unpredictability. Unlike hurricanes or blizzards, there is no visible lead-up, no darkening skies or swelling rivers. They strike without warning, often at night, and their aftershocks linger for days or weeks. The mere knowledge that the Earth is moving again beneath the feet of Midwesterners that cracks, are opening in secret places underground, adds a sense of helplessness and dread to everyday life. Mental health experts warn that this slow-building anxiety could have lasting effects, especially among children, the elderly, and those living in poverty who may feel most exposed and least empowered to protect themselves. Educational institutions in the area have begun updating their emergency plans. Schools are conducting earthquake drills for the first time in years, and universities are reviewing the seismic safety of their dormitories and research buildings. Science departments have also become hubs of public information as more residents seek to understand what the newly discovered cracks mean for their communities. There's a growing consensus that education and transparency will be crucial tools in the coming months. particularly if more cracks appear or if minor quakes begin to increase in frequency. Local indigenous communities are also engaging with this moment from a unique cultural lens. Many Native American tribes in the Mississippi Valley region possess oral histories and traditions that reference great earthquakes or earth-shifting events. These narratives, long dismissed by mainstream science, are now being revisited as part of a broader interdisciplinary effort to understand seismic cycles from both geological and anthropological perspectives. These stories offer a powerful reminder that the land holds memory, and that the people who have lived on it for millennia often possess insights worth listening to. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the cracks under the new Madrid Fault Zone? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.